Hi everybody, and welcome back to Novel Noms. This week I'm really excited to cook something that it's really become one of my favorite things to make. It's delicious, nutritious, amazing. And that is my vegetarian lasagna. This could easily be made with meat, so if you prefer to add something to this to make this more carnivorous, that's up to you.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes Novel Moms.
This is not only a vegetarian lasagna, but it is also a gluten-free lasagna. Again, mostly because I'm just not going to use noodles, I'm going to use eggplant instead. You could use noodles instead of eggplant, I promise. To make this, like I said, it's become one of my favorites because it's really filling, it's got a lot of protein, and it's just like soul satisfyingly delicious. So I'm just going to take the skin off this eggplant for now. And while I'm doing that, we can talk about books. I don't know about you. One thing I've been thinking about lately, and it kind of really goes along with this recipe, which is kind of spinning something traditional on its head and kind of going against that tradition by changing up the ingredients, is kind of the same thing that happens in books in that, you know, typically an author writes a book, it gets released, right, traditionally. And I don't know how many of you are following the Harper To Kill a Mockingbird prequel idea, where she had written this book and it was supposed to be blah blah, then it was unearthed, and there's just a lot of hinkiness there if you ask me. And personally, I don't want to read it. I don't know about you guys. Did you guys read it? What did you think? I don't know. I just have a problem, especially when it comes to books, when things just aren't, you know, they don't follow the art form. It just kind of becomes a commodity, and you know that that's why it's being released. She's not in her right faculties, and her caregiver wants money, and I don't know. I just think that you can buck tradition with lasagna, but I'm not sure you should do it with literature. I just skin the eggplant, and I'm trying to cut it fairly thin. Not so thin that it's like paper, you can see through it. But you know, about maybe a quarter inch thick. So I just laid out the eggplant on a plate. You could put them on a cookie sheet, down a drying rack, and I'm just gonna sprinkle some salt on there because they tend to have a lot of moisture and they'll just get mushy when they cook, and the salt will draw out the moisture. So I'm gonna salt both sides, and then I'm gonna set it aside, and by the time we're ready to use them, they will be ready to finish preparing. Like I said, you could use regular noodles if you don't want to use eggplant, but you could also use zucchini. What else could you use? I don't know, maybe some like yellow squash. You could slice that super thin. It's up to you. Unless you like the gluten, you can have the gluten. So next we're gonna start our filling. I kind of like to get everything chopped all at once just because, you know, it's one little moment in time with the cutting board. I'm just gonna chop up a bunch of mushrooms. Some substitutions, if you're not really crazy about mushrooms, you could do zucchini, you could do any kind of vegetables you like. These I like because they have kind of a meaty texture and flavor to them, so they add that extra special something. I'm gonna chop them up fairly fine, because I want them to incorporate into my mixture nicely. I don't think if I've ever read any other intentionally read any controversial books. Maybe not in the same vein as that book, but I've definitely read some banned books because that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I think if something becomes banned, that's usually when it hits the bestseller list because everybody wants to read it, and that's how I think it should be, because really. Chop up a little bit of onion. I think I remember when I was in school in the 80s, if you've ever seen the movie Footloose, when they were burning the books outside the church. I don't know, it always seemed like a big hot topic on what was banned and what wasn't, and good Lord. And I'm sure I read a bunch of those books. It's just kind of silly. Chopping up this onion, fairly small dice, because again, I want all the pieces of the filling to be about the same size so that when they cook uniformly, but also so that when they mix together, they're not big chunks of one thing kind of standing out. Last but not least, cashews. I feel like did I use these last week? I did. or last time we made the soup, I used cashews. They're amazing, and I think you can cook with them without, they're not super strong flavor, so that they don't overpower anything, and they, again, add like a meaty texture and a lot of protein. Put these in a little food processor, get one of those like tap chopper things. Do that, it would be easier, less messy, and less chance of smashing your fingers with a knife. Okay. Got our cashews, I'm gonna put those in the bowl. Awesome. So I've got cashews, onions, I've got mushrooms, and I've got a crap ton of spinach. Spinach, another one that has a lot of water in it. That's why when you put like a pound of spinach into something to cook it, and it becomes this little tiny thing, because there's a lot of water that gets cooked out when you use it. Chop this up. Again, I don't want the huge leaves to overpower the size of the other elements of the filling. I've used kale. Any kind of greens really. You gotta be careful with the more bitter greens, because you don't want them to overpower everything else, but kale was actually delightful and has a lot more of a texture to it, so it doesn't cook down as much as spinach. All right, so I'm just heating up a big skillet here. I'm not gonna do all of the filling stuff at once, because I want to get some nice color on it. So if you put too much stuff in the pan, it just steams and gets wilty. So I'm just heating up some olive oil in a big flat skillet. You could use whatever you got, whatever you have. Just want to make sure you don't overwhelm it. You don't want to put too much in there. So I'm going to start with my onions, because they're going to flavor everything. While I'm waiting for the onions to cook down, I want to tell you that I already made the sauce. Now you could use a jarred sauce. I don't like to use jarred sauce just because I have to make everything difficult. But I don't like a lot of additives and stuff. But you can find some really good quality sauce out there that doesn't have a lot of chemicals and stuff in it. But I made my own because I like to, and it's delicious. Just a nice tomato, bell pepper, onion, garlic, olive oil, balsamic vinegar. That's it. And so I'm gonna put some pictures and the instructions on how to do that right here. I'm gonna add in about 3 cloves of chopped garlic, fresh garlic. I'm gonna go ahead and add the mushrooms. Mushrooms tend to soak up the olive oil, so sometimes you might want to add a little bit more. It's also delicious. You can use butter. Put it around. And wait for these mushrooms to cook down so they'll get smaller. Oh, you start to smell that really good, amazing smell when everything starts to meld together. So once these are cooked down, we're going to move on to the next step. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of salt to my mixture here. A little bit of pepper. These are done cooking and I get that nice color that I want. I'm going to put that into this bowl, take it out, because again, just keeping adding things, I don't want this to keep cooking, because the mushrooms will keep shrinking and they'll shrivel up and they'll get kind of dried and chewy. So I just want them to be happy the way they are, as everyone should be. I already still have oil in my pan. I'm going to add in those cashews. And I'm going to cook them. Almost want to toast them, but the cashews will also start to soften, but they'll still have a crispy edge to them. See that the cashews are already starting to get this brown color? You got to pay really close attention because you don't want them to burn. So as soon as I start to see that brown, I'm going to add back my mushroom mixture. Get that all mixed, incorporated. We're going to add our spinach. Simply start adding handfuls. I'm going to do like 1 layer. And I'm going to start turning all the ingredients together. And you'll notice the spinach starts to wilt. Starting to get that bright green color, which is the most amazing thing ever on a vegetable, because that means all the good flavors coming out. Add in another layer. The reason you want to turn it into those other ingredients is because you don't want that to just sit on the bottom and burn. Like we have all the other goodies. You want to get it kind of distributed. And then my last layer of spinach. If you wanted to add meat to this, in addition to the mushrooms, you could maybe do a little bit of Italian sausage, maybe some spicy Italian sausage, some ground beef, however you like to make your lasagna, if you want to add a little meat in there, they would really taste amazing with those ingredients. So once you start to see everything's wilted, then we're going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to turn off the heat, and then I'm going to put it all into a little bowl here. So one of the things that goes to traditional lasagna is ricotta cheese. Again, you can go to the store and buy ricotta cheese. Homemade ricotta cheese is probably one of my favorite things in the whole wide world because it's amazing. And I've used it before in previous novel Noms, and so I'm going to put the link down below where you can go see how I made this. But I made this earlier today so it would be ready to go by the time we cook. This may look weird because it's wrapped up in cheesecloth, but it's just this fresh cheese that all it's made from is milk, salt, and a little bit of vinegar, and it's delicious. Our eggplant is ready. You can't really tell, but it's got little beads of sweat on it because the salt has drawn out a lot of the liquid. And pat them dry before we use them in our lasagna. And it's going to make it so they're not mushy. They don't just disintegrate in the middle of our lasagna. This is great too to do this if you're going to fry them. You do like a fried, you could actually do that to this. Oh my goodness. Like an eggplant parmesan casserole. Holy crap. We're ready to build our lasagna. Our eggplant is dry. I have a baking dish that has been sprayed with a little bit of no-stick spray. You can do the same thing with maybe butter or olive oil so it doesn't stick. And I'm going to start with, I always put sauce on the bottom of my lasagna first. Somebody taught me this once, and it helps to get a little bit more flavor on the bottom layer of noodles, or in this case, eggplant, and also helps things not to stick. It's just something to do. It's tradition. All right, I'm going to put my first layer of eggplant. Next, and I'm going to use my hands because it's easier to work with. I'm going to take that ricotta and I'm going to spread some on the bottom layer. This stuff is so amazing. It's so good. Put a layer of this gorgeous sauce that I made with all those vegetables. Flavor, I used basil from my garden, some fresh basil. And at least I'm gonna use some good quality mozzarella cheese. This is one of those things, I am very much anti-bagged cheese because they they do put chemicals in there to keep it so it keeps separated in the bag, and I'd rather not eat that. And fresh mozzarella is probably one of the most tasty cheeses you can find. I'm gonna spoon on that nut, mushroom, onion, spinach mixture that we made. It smells, I really wish you could smell this. It smells so freaking good. This is also one of those impressive dinners that it's super easy. You could make the sauce. If you're gonna make your own ricotta, you can do that all ahead of time. You could even make the filling up ahead of time and just put it together the night of like Christmas Eve or whatever your special occasion is. It really could be. It's impressive. It smells, makes the whole house smell amazing. And people will think that you're amazing, because you are. So I'm on my last layer here. I'm also gonna put together another one of these. No, you guys don't have to watch that, but I'm gonna put together a second one for my husband because he likes noodles. So I get the oven ready noodles that you don't have to cook or boil, which is a pain in the neck. Plus it adds extra water to the lasagna, which is just kind of icky. So I use the no boil noodles. I'm gonna make him that so he doesn't have to eat a noodleless lasagna, because I'm just like good that way. I hope you guys will make this and that you will tell me if you ended up using the eggplant, how it worked, what you thought of it. I always want to know when you guys make stuff. I think a few times I've had people do like response videos where they showed that they made the thing. You have no idea how excited that makes me. So do that. Show me. Share with me. So I'm just topping this last layer with some of that really good mozzarella cheese. Again, you can use as much or as little of this as you want. But the more cheese, the better. Cheese is life. I don't know about you. All right, and I've got some more fresh basil from my garden, and I'm just going to put some of those on top. It makes it really pretty. The leaves kind of cook into the cheese. Hello. And it's delicious. It just adds that extra punch of homey, lovely flavor. Extra shimmy shake of salt, a little extra shimmy shake of pepper. And I'm gonna put this into a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes